Good afternoon, everyone. This is Woody Collins, and I am with Congo Helping Hands, and we are here to talk about Congo. Today's subject is transportation, in short, but how do you get there? How do you get around in Congo? How you get from one place to another? And so we will talk about that today on this live broadcast. Uh, Today is Tuesday, uh, November 10th. The month is already getting going good. And so we do this broadcast every day at 3 o'clock. So let's go ahead and get started. So, how do you get around the Congo? That is a favorite question. You know that you have to fly into the Congo, but how do you get around the Congo? Well, one of the things that I found out early on, you can fly. You can fly from one city to another, and you can also fly from to any place that has a small airstrip. A lot of the missionaries, they had uh, airstrips out on their mission stations. Uh, the Presbyterians had a airplane at one time. The Methodists had airplanes. Pretty much everybody had airplanes that they could fly around because that was how you got from one place to another. Even though early on, back in the 60s, the roads were pretty good, but in order to go to a lot of places, you would also just use a private plane to get there. So you can go by private plane. Now, there are commercial planes, but they are limited in the number of airlines, and they keep changing, and they change also their schedule from time to time. So therefore, you don't know from one time you're there to the next time whether that airline is still going to be in business, or whether they've been merged with somebody else and somebody else bought their planes. It's one of those situations where I'm not sure uh, whether they had an accident and they had to terminate and somebody else bought whatever remaining planes they had, but you can fly commercial. To the city that I go to, Congo, at one time, at the most, we've had, I think we had two regular carriers that flew there, and they flew there about 4 times a week. They didn't fly every day, but they flew about 4 days a week, and maybe you got up to five or something like that. But they only fly once a day, and like I say, 4 or 5 times a week. Uh, so that's limited to the larger cities and to places you go. Some places you can only fly once a week. Like when I went out to Loja, the plane flies on Monday, and that's the only day it goes out there. So you fly out on Monday, and you have to stay a week, and you fly back. That's one of the things. And then they can also cancel flights uh, without warning. When we were getting ready to come back from Loja, we went to the airport. The plane landed. They were unloading people. Then while we was waiting to get on, the pilot made the announcement that, we're not going to go back to Kinshasa tonight. The weather is bad, or whatever the case may be. So we did not go back. So we went back home and stayed another day. And we got up early the next morning and flew there. So uh, you have to really plan that when you flying out on your international flights. So you would never make a flight deliberately. Say if you were going to fly on Monday, you wouldn't make an international flight. Say leave out on in the evening. You would not plan on flying out because it's subject to change. I always give myself a leeway of at least one day because if they cancel it one day, they may fly it the next day. Okay, let's go into the next mode of transportation, by car or by truck. Cars don't go around; they only go in the city. So it's by four-wheel drive. You can drive from Kinshasa to Kananga, which is about take you about on a jet. It takes you on a small jet. It takes you about an hour and a half, but on a prop plane, it may take 2.5 hours to go by prop plane. But by car, it would take you over a week to get there. So that's how bad the roads are, and you're gonna be waiting to get there uh, to go to those places. So there's not a lot of traffic. These are private vehicles. There's no such things as buses that make that trip. You cannot. I guess you can try it. You can try to go from cross country from one side of the country to another, but most people would never do that. They would fly because it just would take you probably months to go someplace. And the roads are so bad, if you break down, you may have to wait there a month or longer to get parts. You would have to wait maybe till somebody else come through that can take a message to someplace else. You take a ride. If you were the driver, you may get in somebody else's vehicle and ride to the next town that has cell service, and you could uh, make calls to somebody, and then they would maybe bring you the parts. Once we were going up from Kananga up to we were going to Lawebo, and then we were going to Bulape. We had troubles, and so we kept getting stuck because he didn't have four-wheel drive, and then he lost his first gear, so it was really bad. So we finally decided after spending over a day to make it almost halfway to Luebo, we said, hey, you got to get this fixed. And I think he was tired of shoveling, the chauffeur was tired of shoveling along with his helper. So they decided to call somebody and ask them to bring parts. And so the next day was they brought parts out to us, and they brought parts out to us on a motorcycle. So that's the way you have. So there's also commercial trucks that go from city to city. If you take a commercial truck, you may probably, in all cases, have to ride on the top of the truck, on top of the cargo, which is a very dangerous thing because if they turn over, or if they lean sideways, you would probably go flying off. Uh, and those trucks are high. It's probably about the high, a little bit higher than our semis. So you can imagine if you was riding on the top of a semi, and if you fell off, uh, they're not going that fast, but just the mere fact that you fall off there would hurt yourself. Second thing, you can also, along with the vehicles, as I said, you can go by motorcycle. So you see sometime that people will rent a motorcycle to go from one place to another, or if they have their own motorcycle, they will go from one place. I met this one priest that had his motorcycle. It was a big machine. Looked like it was some type of big Honda, and he was going. He came from one. I mean, it was just the biggest uh, a motorcycle that I've seen, and he was riding from one place to another. And then you occasionally you can look on YouTube, and there are people who make that cross country trip from one place to another. Uh, and usually as Europeans or somebody who wants to experience it, and they go from one part of the country to another part on their way, doing a cross continental trip throughout Africa. So what's the next thing? It's bicycles. People, and I remember when we first went there, people were saying, "Oh, we need to buy our pastors bicycles." And I thought, gee, I've looked at the roads. The roads are not, they're dirt roads, muddy, pothole. And I thought, there's no place to even ride a bicycle. And these wasn't mountain bikes. These were just regular, street bikes. And I thought, boy, how are they going to do this? But what I found out is people, they load whatever. Say if they got a suitcase, they'll put the suitcase on the bike and they will push the bike. So the bike becomes a carrier for whatever they may do. I've seen men pushing with their kids and their wife on the bike, and he's pushing the bike. Or then if they're going through some deep sand, you'll see the kids and everybody get off and they will push the bike because they got their luggage and stuff on the bike. Uh, so that's one way that they do it. And as I mentioned yesterday, you got these people that we call Bayandas. They they are merchants and they go from city to city pushing bikes. They would do corn. They would load those bikes down with probably 300 pounds of corn or 400 pounds of corn, and they would push these bikes from one city to another. Not only corn, but I've seen everything on the back of these guys are pushing. Television, even saw satellite dishes. They are probably the equivalent of a a small commercial truck, and that's their job is to they buy stuff in one place and take it to another place to be sold, and they go from market to market and selling their items for sale. So you have bicycles are used, and then there is people who walk from city to city, and they it's kind of heart wrenching. You'll be driving down the road and you'll see somebody walking, and they'll be wanting to flag you down because they need a ride, and especially with women, they're coming from the fields and they'll be trying to ask for rides and everything, but most times people don't pick up people to ride them along. So, and you see a lot of people walking, lots of people walking, and that's their how they have to get around. So that's the major areas, major modes of travel is the lowest is walking, and that don't cost you anything. Up to an airline where that hour and a half flight will cost you sometime $300, $200, depends on what it is, and the price goes up or goes down based on the competition. Uh, Also, I forgot to say, they also you can also catch a cargo flight. They fly a lot of cargo from major city to major city, and you can ride on a cargo flight, and they fly, without schedule. Is whenever they get the plane loaded, then they will go and take a cargo. But you're inside the plane with cargo on it, and you can imagine uh, sitting there, and there's all this stuff stacked up behind you, and you think, okay, I hope this stuff is tied down well, because if it's not, I am going to get crushed. And what kind of seat you're sitting in? Sometime, but not they may have one row of seats at the front, but most times they've used the whole plane for cargo, and they will give you a plastic chair to sit in, so you're almost sitting almost like where the galley is on a plane is, and you're sitting up near that area, but you're sitting right there in front of wherever. And so, like I say, getting crushed if the plane hits something, uh, slams on brakes, that stuff allowed to break loose and come and hit you. So that's how you get around in Congo. It's tough, it's hard, and so once you get off the plane in Kinshasa, it's ended. So thank you again, and we'll see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock. As I said, we always broadcast at 3 o'clock, and we will see you tomorrow. Take care. Take care of yourself. Be blessed, uh, and be kind by using your mask, washing your hands, and uh, and social distancing yourself. So we will see you tomorrow. Take care now.